Hello and welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar on getting ready to reopen for non-hotel accommodation today. I'm Patricia Kingston from Tourism NI and I'll be facilitating this morning's session. This webinar is being delivered as part of Tourism NI's ongoing Tourism Enterprise Development Programme, and during this current series we're taking a look at what businesses need to consider when getting ready to welcome back visitors once restrictions begin to ease. Today, we're going to be hearing from Sharon from Place Solutions. He'll be providing insights on the NI domestic market. Then we'll be joined by Janice Gault, Chief Executive of the NI Hotels Federation. He'll be taking a strategic look at what the non-hotel accommodation sector should be thinking about right now. Finally, we're going to be hearing from my colleague, Samantha Corr, Manager of the Tourism NI Quality and Standards team. He'll be giving us an update from the Q&S team and sharing some useful tips on getting ready to open. This year's TED programme has been designed to continue to help the tourism industry here survive and recover as we start to move forward from the events of the past year. We're continually reviewing and evolving the programme based on your needs, so please keep letting us know what else you'd like to see featured in the TED programme going forward, and I'll be explaining a little bit more about how you can get in touch with us later on. We'll be having a short Q&A session with our speakers following the main presentation. So any questions that you have at all during today's presentations, just pop them into the chat box in your control panel, and I'll pick up as many of these as I can at the end. So now, without further ado, it's my great pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Sharon Scott from Place Solutions, to kick off today's presentations. Good morning, Sharon.
In this short session, we're going to look at the domestic market, which will be key to recovery in 2021. So what do we mean by the domestic market exactly? This is all residents over the age of 18 with a propensity to travel anywhere in the world, really. But this year in particular, they're more likely to staycation, to stay in Northern Ireland. And that is really what we're looking at today. What we're going to do in the short time that we've got, we will cover a review of the assets and support that are available to you when you're putting together your marketing plans as we move towards reopening. We'll have a quick review of the domestic market segments, and then we'll talk in a little detail about the domestic marketing plan for 2021, your key to recovery. So what assets and support are available? There's a wide range of support from the domestic strategy document itself. There's a host of webinars that were rolled out over the course of 2020. We have some really interesting market segment videos which really capture in essence of the different segments. And this is really interesting to help you quickly understand what each segment's about. There's an action plan template which you can download from Tourism Northern Ireland and fill in at your leisure. Very important to keep a close eye on, and there's another wave of this due out very shortly, is the consumer sentiment survey. That's when we analyse the mood of the traveller, their propensity to travel and what needs and motivations they have around that. There's market insights programs that are very important to keep an eye on the trends that are heading our way in 2021. The industry easing will be more and more important to help you keep up to date with the marketing campaigns, the trends as we move forward in 2021. So make sure you're registered on this all-important industry easing. There's the Experience Development Programme from Tourism Northern Ireland, and as well as that, the local councils are offering a lot of business and marketing support. So you will see a lot of information on this, and we will give this to you after the webinar today. We'll send you out some links to these important assets and support to help you. So some of the trends at a glance that are heading our way. This is from the Business Insights Programme for 2021. It's a very detailed report, but very useful from a marketing point of view, really capturing the trends at a glance. And here's some of them that we're seeing with no signs of abating in 2021. We've all seen the move towards health and well-being, driven by the vaccines, but actually driven by the move towards local food, towards being outdoors, to walking and activity. So that will be top of the agenda for years to come. A huge growing trend globally, and something that will impact us in Northern Ireland and which we can really benefit from, is the whole idea of conscious travel. Regenerative tourism is another term for that. This has boosted the customer awareness for sustainability, but taking that more than that to what does tourism mean? what does it mean to our communities? How can we protect the environment and the assets that have made our tourism what it is today? Digital transformation obviously will be key, and we've seen everyone move towards online for booking, for buying, for searching for their travels and their trips. So that's some of the things to be aware of and read through the consumer insights reports that are available. We look at the quick look through the priority segments. I would really encourage you to look at these in more detail through the assets and supports that are available. It is a really detailed piece of work, but the segments are, in essence, there are 6 involved in the Northern Ireland domestic market segmentation strategy. And we'll look at, in particular today, given our times, at the priority segments for growth. So aspiring families is about 30% of the market, and with 15% are actually each, the social Instagrammers, the younger element, and the natural quality seekers, the other slightly older element, are key, and those are the ones to really prioritize and focus your marketing efforts on. So what are these segments? Aspiring families. It is what you would expect, very strong family focus. They're very into their activities, which are important, a variety of interests catering for all the family, from mum to young kids. These people, in terms of their demographics, are most likely to be between the age of 35, 44. They'll have young children under the age of 16. So that's an important element at 30% of the market this summer in particularly. If we look at consumer sentiment, they're looking to come, particularly July into August when travel opens again. So they do quite a lot of research. They're into the seeking value. They're not prepared to pay for quality if they think it's worth it. The next one that we come to are natural quality seekers. This segment, slightly older age group, the average age would be about 55 years of age. It's more likely to be the male booking here, and they're likely to have older kids, but probably travel on their own. They're also more likely to travel out of season, which is good when we're looking at marketing and extending the season this year. They're nature lovers. They enjoy being outdoors. The whole issue of sustainability is very, very important to them. They like to plan. They're probably likely to use the digital platforms online. They prefer slightly more gentle activities. The final one we look at is the social Instagrammers. These guys are younger in age group. Actually, they're 18 to 24, 29%, 26% below the age of 34. So certainly that younger catchment. They like the buzz, the atmosphere, the nightlife, and the pubs when they open. They actually want to broaden their mind as well, and this is a slightly shift, that they're not just party, they want to look at the activities, really have something to do as they're in the location. So that's going to be an important element of growth. So what key elements do you need to look at in your marketing plan for 2021? So when you're looking at your marketing plan for 2021, the strategy for growth guides you with 4 key pillars or key themes from which to focus your marketing efforts for 2021. And we'll look at those in some detail over the next few slides. Effective communications. This is really about delivering communications that resonate with and influence the domestic audience to take that holiday, to make that booking or that short break in Northern Ireland over and above other places which they could choose to go. So you've really got to think here about what segment does your current marketing experience appeal to most. Is it the aspiring families? Is it those younger social Instagrammers? Think about their passion points, their motivations, their needs, all the details, and you really have to effective communications to drive this message forward. So the digital and above the lines, where do they hang out? Where can you find these people? We talked about social Instagrammers, they're in social media. Maybe the natural quality seekers will look to websites and more stationary digital platforms. Think about where you'll find them and actually effectively target those particular channels. And we've mentioned digital importance is growing in importance for all the segments, so it's very important that this is clear in your messaging. Think about those important messages that the consumer sentiment surveys are really driving home at the minute. The whole issue around safety, feeling safe, your COVID safety policies, your good to go standards. The real message and key is escapism, getting away from it all. That's what people want in a break to Northern Ireland. They do want exclusive packages, immersive experiences, but very much important is the idea of flexible communication. So how through your communications policy can you drive those key messages home? And who can you partner with when you're looking at effective communications? You'll have that within your own business. How do you work with your local council? How do you work with Tourism Northern Ireland to really make sure that the consumer is aware and your communications channels are effective? The whole issue, all of you will be aware of the need to drive compelling experiences, attractions and events, and 2021 will be so important in this regard. We will be guided by the guidelines and the restrictions, but this is important to really find, build and improve new and existing tourism experiences. How do we do that? We will look at your target markets again. What additional elements, additional product and experience elements do you need to win that priority segment? How can you enhance your existing offer? Is it a day trip you're offering? How can you extend that to maybe include an overnight with another accommodation provider? What added value can you bring to your experience, whether it be provision of food and drink, additional activities, offers for different members of the family? How can you drive and make that more compelling and more likely to book the experience? How can you move your experience into the local nighttime offer? How can you collaborate with the entertainment venues? All those elements to really make a compelling experience. And most effectively, the costing and the pricing structures makes it commercially viable and appealing to your target market itself. Citizen and community engagement will be key to this year. How do you build your local engagement around your business? How are they aware of it? We all know in Northern Ireland the value of word of mouth in marketing and in domestic travel. That is important. How do we drive a sense of pride in our tourism offer? How can we use our local residents to be advocates for Northern Ireland as a tourism destination? It's important that we help this with maybe organising fam trips for the local community to come in and see what it is you actually do in your business, and how could we leverage that and get and employ local people? How can we look at our training and our support facilities to really make that community engagement key part of our marketing effort? Very much important this year, and something I know many of you are already working very hard on, is the idea of industry collaboration, working together to drive the experiences and the packages for 2021. Who do you collaborate with in your local business community to improve your experience and your offer? How do you work with the local council, Tourism Northern Ireland, in driving that communications and marketing message? That will be crucial this year more than ever to driving the domestic tourism offer. So finally, your recovery marketing plan itself, we've gone through how you can structure and develop that. It's really all about inspiring people to staycation at home, to embrace Northern Ireland's giant spirit. Looking at all those, you'll need to be aware of the brand. I know that we've done lots of webinars and there's lots of support available to really understand how you can awaken the giant spirit within your own business and your experience to the visitors. We'll be looking at the rolling out in the weeks and months ahead of a Tourism Northern Ireland campaign, a recovery marketing campaign to really help you target those domestic travellers. The councils will be running a series of local campaigns. So as a business, be aware of what's happening, when it's happening, when it's safe to do so, and really look at hooking your individual marketing efforts with what's happening at the council and tourism NI level. That will be key, that everybody collaborates and works together. Really be aware of consumer research. That is so crucial this year more than ever. It will really inform your marketing tactics. This is all about acting quickly. The market is going to open up. When it does, we anticipate that will happen very quickly. We all know with that latent demand for travel, so it is about planning now for the months ahead, and that is so important that we actually start that now with your business colleagues, with your existing staff, and with the wider agencies that are already working very hard on this marketing element. It's all about the epic fun without the epic track. Some of the visuals that we've been showing through the presentation look at the round in the autumn. It's not about how far, it's about how fun. That's your aspiring families to the forefront of that particular image. It's about the warmth of welcome, the ability to get away from it all, very front and foremost in the last consumer sentiment. They want escapism, they want the world-class food and drink showcased to them, the beauty of the landscape and those important immersive experiences targeted to their particular needs. There will be an increased focus on the good to go standard to drive those feelings of safety, that all important consumer confidence. The We're Good to Go logo is now supported by a global quality mark under Safe Travels, giving it an added value to you. So make sure that's absolutely prominent in all your marketing collateral across your digital platforms. The consumer sentiment research is showing that 2 out of 3 people will actually choose a location that's demonstrating we're good to go, as opposed to maybe somewhere that's not. So it's important that we show our accreditation, show that we are ready and we are safe to reopen. This is all about getting the best projects for immediate bookings. The bookings, the planning we know is happening now. The bookings will come, and hopefully by working together on our marketing planning, we will have a very, very good season and recovery. Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon. That's a really, really useful overview. And don't forget, everybody, we're going to be speaking with Sharon again a little later. So if you have any questions at all for her, just pop those into the question box in your control panel. It's now my great pleasure to welcome Janice Gault, Chief Executive of the Northern Ireland Hotels Federation, who's going to be sharing some of her wisdom with us all this morning. So hi, Janice. Thank you for joining us. Lovely to have you with us.
Thank you, Patricia. Good morning, everybody. And some of you will know me from the Hotel Federation, and in reality I'm just going to talk you through plans for reopening, some kind of analysis that we have done at a strategic level, and some of this may apply to you and some of it won't, but hopefully it will give you some form of an insight into the process that the industry is using to come back after what has been a sort of a long period of closure. I suppose we have looked at certain elements, and our understanding is that we've looked to the future, and in the future life and business will be different, challenging, with many opportunities and requiring bespoke solutions. I don't have to tell all of you that in reality each of your businesses is very different. It is unique, it is a different thing. And you will have solutions and you will have business operations that are something that is exclusive to yourselves. Many will be the same, but you may have your own particular nuances. We think that many aspects of COVID-19 have changed business. It may change it forever. We may revert to some of the practices we had before, but there definitely will be an impact in relation to this. I suppose on a positive note, all accommodation will reopen. There is a bit of a lag at this moment in time. We are now going through the government pathway, with the next review date being the 15th of April. And we would hope at that time that there will be some insights into a pathway for ourselves. In reality, we've looked at this over 5 different key areas, and those fall into what are 5 Ps. And how we've arrived at these is they are the fundamental elements that will allow you bring your business back to life. And there are also areas that we feel that should be looked at, are important in offering something to your customer, and are the very fundamentals or the DNA of your business. So we've looked at people, product, premises, profit and promise. And I will go into some details as to what that means, how you can look at those, and what if you can't do this or what if you can't do that, giving some anecdotal evidence around this. Firstly, looking at the people part of it, many of you may be smaller operations, you may only have 1 or 2 people, but you are a great asset to your business. You're the thing that people book, you're the thing that they see. So you need to be aware of what the current regulations are, you need to be trained, you need to feel safe. And if you have employees, they also need to feel safe, confident, and you need to be compliant with regulations. There's also an area of confidence that comes from that, which will allow you to be engaged and ready to go as things move forward. We find that People are something that people come here to meet our people. They're a big attraction. For those of you who have other staff, they may be returning after a long period of time off. You may need to recruit more people, and creating a team or a team spirit, even if it's only 1 or 2 people that join your operation, it's important that you're able to bring them together. Communicate what you plan to do with the business, retraining and engagement. There's lots of free options out there at the moment, very simple things that you can go out that you can look at, as well as some training that's mandatory. People may need additional support beyond their normal job role. They may be feeling slightly stressed, their mental health may have suffered, they may be feeling somewhat at a loss, and they may have concerns about coming back. And what if that is the case? I mean, we have seen many people send out stuff about, for example, yoga, maybe joining together on a Zoom call that isn't actually directly based around work, or bringing people back to the premises. Under the current restrictions, you can bring people back into your business, even if they are on furlough. Talk them round, speak with them about what changes you've made, and speak with them about what your plans for the future are. And I think that those are opportunities that are there for everybody. They're a difficult thing for people to do in terms of coming back and seeing what changes you have made. You may have actually made changes to your business which they are not aware of, but now is the time maybe for engagement. There is actually a very good document produced by HATS, which is a hospitality and tourism skills collaborative network. And that shows you a whole raft of activity, many of which are free. A very large amount of it is funded. And there may be something in your area that you can actually take and use. The Hotel Federation are also doing a couple of workshops. They are for our members, but if anybody is interested in joining them or getting the download of them, please send through an email afterwards to either Patricia or myself, and I will be happy to try and make arrangements for you to get access to them. But they're very much around this bringing people back into your workplace and also looking at the opportunities around sales. The next thing for us to look at really is the product side of things. The product is really what you sell. And if you are selling something that's different, for example, if you're in motorhome business, maybe you're looking at selling shorter breaks, maybe you're looking at doing longer breaks, maybe you're looking at doing different itineraries that people haven't used before. It's important that you market that. And when I say market it, go out and tell your customers what's there. A really good example of this is all of you already have a lot of data. You have people who've booked with you before, people who've stayed with you before, or even people that have inquired with you before. Many of you may use platforms like Google, you may use TripAdvisor, and there are ways of you going out to your customer base, giving them some new offers that you have, ensuring that those are deliverable, also that they're safe, compliant, and flexible. That's the one thing that we have found that customers are looking for. They're looking to make sure that if they get sick or the government brings in new restrictions, that they can get their money back or they can move their actual date of booking. And every hotel and accommodation is different. It makes no difference what way you put this. You know, a motorhome is different from a hotel, is different from a motel, and your customers are booking based on that. You can actually change some of the things that you have. If you're self-catering, you can maybe do a package with a local tourist attraction. You can maybe offer people bought-in products from a local artisan buyer. You can put all those things together. COVID-19 may have altered your business. This may only be a short-term alteration, but it may have altered forever. You can add to it, but you can also take away if some things don't work. For example, if you're near a local natural area of beauty, you can say, we can give you a bundle where you can buy a discounted voucher to visit something maybe with the National Trust, or alternatively you can say we've tied up with the local bike trail. Those may be things that you want to do. But some of your customers may book because it's you and they think that, you know, they're booking the product. Less can often be more for them. They see what's there, but you can also send them out links or a very short brochure. Currently you're closed, you may want to reconnect, and you can say, if you come and stay with us, this is what's near. Or if you're a driving option, you can drive to the following locations. And those are things that many people would appreciate. You may want to adapt to your customer. Many people may be using your type of product for the first time. Self-catering is actually currently very popular with family groups, and also people maybe who want to have a slightly more private stay, don't want to go for communal dining, may be looking at something that's slightly different. So you may have the opportunity to appeal to more people. The next thing is really your premises, and they may mean many different things, but this is the actual physical structure that people see. This has been a considerable investment for everybody, but it is something you need to tell your customer how you've changed it, how it's safe, how it's compliant. You need to give them appropriate information, but you also need to make sure that they can find you. Maybe send them an email beforehand saying to them, this is where we are, giving the postcode. If you have kind of map details, putting that in so they can put it into their sat nav. And we may appeal to a totally new customer this year. Last year, we had a considerable influx of people from the Irish Republic, and this year there certainly seems to be an interest there. I would add that currently they are not allowed to travel, but that is something that will change over the summer, and this may be a market that you can really appeal to. And you can go out there. You may think that you know exactly where you are, but it's important that you let people know about those particular things. Again, every premise, hotel or accommodation, is different. You can change it with investment, which is large or small. I mean, you may, for example, want to invest in iPads or something like that to put in better television, something that's quite small. Or if you're a different type of business, you may want to look at new signage. Small things can make a huge difference. COVID may have altered parts of your business permanently, and that you may have built new structures, but that's something that you can communicate, and business will evolve over a short period of time. Digital solutions for you may be very simple. You may have an opportunity where you can go in and you can say, okay, we've got, we have new maps for people. We've taken out physical collateral that we had, and we've replaced that. A number of smaller businesses have been in touch with us and said, we want to take away all the brochures and maps that we have, but how can we give information? They have designed something, put an iPad in, sanitized that iPad beforehand, and sent a link to their customers. So if the customer wants to do it on their own device, they can, or if they want to use a dedicated iPad or another tablet within the business, they can do so. You can also adapt your place to your market segment. For example, if it's a three generational thing, you may look at changing it around, putting in board games that people can play together. You may look at changing the space, maybe putting a sofa bed in the living room where you didn't have one before, or putting in different types of bed, or changing the configuration of your self-catering, or for that matter, your guest house or guest accommodation. But you need to make sure that your staff are aware of the changes that you've made. So if somebody contacts people, you can say, yes, we used to have double rooms, now they can be twin. We do have extra accommodation in a living room. Or alternatively, if maybe you're a motorhome, yes, we are offering short breaks. We are operating maybe an overnight accommodation option, but your staff or yourself need to be aware of that and let people know. The next part I look at is promise, and for many people this is really about your brand, and people think this is only for big, quite often only for big operations. In reality, it's not. It's for everybody, and this is the thing that really will allow you to sell. It's about your reputation, how you communicate, but it needs to be a live thing. It isn't something that should be dead. A lot of larger organizations may link to brands that you will be aware of, Hilton, Marriott, big hotel brands, or if you're a self-accommodation, maybe Stay City or somebody like that. But you do have the opportunity to create a brand and create an experience that your customers can identify with and also will resonate with them. It will allow you to deliver a very clear experience and allow you to deliver an appropriate message, which you can deliver, which is relevant to the customer base or the type of customer you wish to appeal to. And it is an investment. People think that it's about lots and lots of money and spending loads of times, and you can quite often look at something and think, how would I ever do that? But it does need to be something that's appropriate for you. It doesn't need to be expensive. You can perhaps steal from somebody else. I don't mean steal in the real sense of the word, but you can go in, look at what maybe a couple of the really big players are doing and think, oh, I could use that. Or look at other businesses, even businesses beyond your own area, and think, okay, that could work well for me, and change those around. You do need to keep it unique to yourself, but it does give you opportunities. One thing that we have used in the past is looking at customer feedback. So I have used an example here of a business and what their customers have actually said about them. They've said these are all the different things that have appealed to them. The most important thing here really, and these are the larger letters, the way word cloud works is the things that customers have commented on most actually come out to the top. This is simply taking the last 10 reviews from TripAdvisor for this company, looking at them, putting them all together, and seeing. So the location was a very important thing for these. It was great. There was room, staff, rooms, safe, clean, and they also commented on the fact that it was in Enniskillen and it's the Belmore Court. But the one thing I did when I did this, first of all, was I actually took out the name of the premises. But when you add that back this in, you'll actually see how strong this brand is, because Belmore and Court, or the Belmore was one of the things that all the customers kind of commented on. So that's a very simple exercise that you can do very quickly. There are a number of tools on the internet. Wordit, Monkey Learn is another one. They're all free. You go in, you put in your reviews, you have a look at them, or alternatively, you could ask your customers to write to you and write a short sentence and then work out the bits and pieces and build your brand around that. But it's a very easy way of creating something that can be quite meaningful. The next thing is profit, and like it or like it not, we are all in business to make money. It is essential. It is the purpose of really why people trade, but you do need to plan for it. This year particularly will be very challenging. Many people will have taken on significant additional costs. You will have been closed for a period of time, and you may be restricted when you go back to reopening. But you need to communicate that to a number of different people who are in your immediate circle of business. Profit allows you to invest, it will allow you to grow, it will allow you to adapt, and it is something that should be achievable. It may not be achievable in the levels that you've had before this year, but it is important that you look at that for the future. You do need profit, and all successful businesses make money, but your staff also need to be aware of the cost, your profit and your plans, maybe not in minute details, but they need to be aware of the additional costs that you have. For example, if you have put it in additional sanitation processes and they have to work, maybe it was an hour cleaning an apartment before, maybe now it's an hour and a half or 2 hours. Or alternatively, you may be taking less bookings, you may be taking smaller groups of people. They need to be aware of the impact of that. You also, if you have a financial institution or an investor, they need to be aware of the pressures that they're going to be fiscally on you. COVID-19 may require you to take a different approach. You may do a very short 3-month business plan with showing your profit. You may extend that to 6 months. You may want to look very carefully at cash flow. Those are things that you may have done in the past, but which you may wish to change. And your business probably will have to do this for the balance of this year until we get back to maybe a more restorative situation. We hopefully, when we reopen, will not be facing a situation where we have to look at lockdown again, but this is something, but additional restrictions may be brought back into play, and this is something you may need to be aware of. Your profit may not be immediate, but the long-term loss is not sustainable for any business. At the moment, you may look at the rest of this year simply breaking even, you may look at a small profit, but it is something that you certainly do need to be aware of. When I talk about things being different, I look at the overall difference in both the whole world. The world is a different place as it was. I mean, the first mutings of this particular virus came through sort of in January last year. And in the last 12 months, things have altered immeasurably. Society has altered the way we behave. You know, we're currently in lockdown, we don't see people. The market in which we operate has changed, and that's a global position. It's not just a position for Northern Ireland, Ireland, Britain or Europe. It's a position throughout the world. Your customer may have changed. People who maybe have looked at going abroad will now look at staying at home, and people who are abroad may look at destinations that they consider to be much safer. There's got to be a new adaptability. We've proved that we've been a very nimble industry. We've also been very flexible in what we've done, with many people moving to different areas and looking at them and going, right, I did this previously, I may look at doing this in the future. But all of this does afford opportunities. When I also look at the challenges that are ahead, we've had lots of things thrown at us. Many of us would never have thought they've happened before, and it's been very taxing both physically and mentally on people who are in the tourism sector. These are uncharted tourism times. Nobody actually has ever dealt with this before. We've looked at some destinations that have recovered, but they have recovered in a very limited sense. We've taken on additional cost. There is uncertainty, and that uncertainty undoubtedly influences confidence. Staffing is another thing. Many people have had to take on additional staff, had to rechange their staff, and had to get to the staff to do different things. And that's something that people have had to really hit the ground running with, and had to really be very fluid in what they've had. We've also had to make investments in both terms of time and actually fiscal investment. And that for people has presented a series of challenges that they've maybe never had to meet before. But I would have to say the majority of people have come out the other side and got to where they are now. We would still see ourselves very much in survival mode, but I think the people within this industry have shown an incredible tenacity, and hopefully they will be able to continue to trade throughout the coming year. There are opportunities, and I have reflected on these before. There are a number of these that will affect every aspect of business. We will have maybe new customers in a new world. We've had a staycation market, which is very strong, and the map on the small diagram on the right hand side of the stock, my right and your left, maybe I can't remember which it is. You know, we have seen people look at where we get our business from. So we get a significant amount of business from the domestic trade, we get business from ROI, and we get business from GB. So if you look at that, about 76% of our business comes from those destinations. And if we're able to attract people from there this summer and actually grow that market, we stand a very fair chance of coming out into 2022 with a good business model, a business that has been able to survive, and a business that will be able to continue to trade. There is pent-up demand, and I think many of you will know we've opened and closed 3 times this year, and many of you will be aware as soon as an opening date is given, that demand automatically flows. People have a lot of savings in their bank accounts. Many of them are on furlough, many have money there, many haven't been able to do things. That's not the position for everybody, but certainly there is a significant amount of cash there that people are willing to spend. They're also keen to reconnect with people. They're also keen to meet family, friends, and go out and do things. And there is an opportunity for you to have a reinvention of your product. Maybe a few small tweaks will allow you to change what you're able to do and how you're able to attract people. This is a new era, and I think that we all are aware of that. We are not going back to exactly what we went through before. And we see people having a reopening plan, which is quite simple. You may want to add bits to it. Sam and Patricia will be able to direct you towards a significant amount of information, which in TNI, and we certainly send out short updates to our members around what there is and what there is in the future and what changes have been made to guidance. So we would say you have to re-engage your staff, tell your story, adapt your business, and dazzle your audience. I think that was something that Niall Gibbons from Tourism Ireland said on a summit that we did last week. This is an opportunity for you to show what you have, things that people haven't seen before, become really attractive. You need to stay flexible, offer good terms and conditions to your customers, and they will stick with you. Don't be afraid of change. If things change and you're allowed to do less, maybe try and adapt to that and plan for profit. Some of you may know me and others of you may not, but I would have to say that this is really a time for optimism. I mean, this is a quote from Sir Winston Churchill, which in many ways sums things up. He said, "A pessimist sees difficulty in every opportunity, and an optimist sees opportunity in every difficulty." I will say, in the period of time that I've spent in the tourism sector, people are generally quite optimistic. They don't find difficulties something that they see as something that's going to beat them back. They see them as something that they must overcome. And I wish all of you every success in trying to overcome those. And thank you for your time this morning.
Thanks so much, Janice. Once again, so much to think about and take in there. So just a reminder to everybody watching, if you have any questions for any of our speakers, please pop them into the questions panel, and I'll be picking up as many of those as I can a little bit later. I can see some flowing in there already, so we should have a great Q&A session today. So now it's my pleasure to welcome Samantha Corr from the Tourism NI Quality and Standards team, who's going to give us a quick update on certification and quality assurance, and is also going to be sharing some of her top tips for reopening. So hi Sam, great to have you with us today.
Hello, thank you very much, Patricia. So morning everyone, and thanks for taking the time to join this morning. So as Patricia said, my name is Samantha Corr. I manage our quality and standards team here at Tourism Northern Ireland. So many of you will already know me, or you'll know the team from working with us on your certification visits and quality grading. So We know about the challenges posed by COVID-19 and the road we have ahead of us, and we heard some great tips and great advice from Janice there, and also Sharon on how to get a better understanding of our new markets. There's lots of great work going on here at Tourism NI, as well as we put together some of that great market research that we saw in Sharon's presentation, and really hone in on our understanding of our markets as we get ready to switch on our marketing campaigns. And then the teams that are working very hard in the background going to trade shows, virtual trade shows and expos to secure future business for Northern Ireland this year, next year, and into the future. So I wanted to take a little bit of time today to update you on some of the work that my team has been doing, what we've learned along the way, and how this affects you. So you'll all be aware that there's a legal requirement in Northern Ireland to be certified by Tourism NI before trading. So this is different than your quality assurance or star grading assessment, and I'll talk about that in a second. So the certification is there to make sure that minimum standards are in place so that our visitors have a safe, clean, and comfortable place to stay. So under usual circumstances, we're required to carry out an inspection at least once every 4 years. That hasn't always been possible this year. Therefore, businesses that hold a current valid certificate will continue to hold that certificate until we're able to facilitate that statutory inspection. What we've already done is to add a 4-month extension to your renewal date to take into account some of the period of restrictions and closures. And we're working to hopefully be able to do a little bit more on that. And then many of you here are members of the Quality Assurance or Star Grading Scheme. What we've been able to do is add a 1-year extension to all existing memberships, and that's free of charge. So your current star grade will remain unchanged until the next visit. So both of these elements, they are a significant financial contribution and commitment from Tourism NI, but our priority is very much to support the tourism industry through the various stages of survival, recovery, and beyond. And these are two crucial elements to that. So you don't need to do anything for now. We will contact you once the inspection's due, and you're more than welcome to contact me or any of the team if you need dates or want to chat through anything, and my contact details are at the end. One thing I would ask, I've popped a link on the slide here. Please make sure your login or your contact details are up to date on our system to make sure you get correspondence from us. So the web address is ownerslogin.tourismni.com. Any issues, there's a forgot password functionality on there, or again, contact myself or the team. So what does 2021 look like in terms of certification and quality assurance? So we're hopeful that we'll be able to return to assessments in the next month. Priority is going to be to assess any new businesses that are waiting to open or new applicants to the quality assurance scheme. After that, we'll commence with our usual service. So our role is very much going to be to encourage and support you and work closely with the whole tourism industry over the next year. What we have found, so inspections have continued over the past year, and what we have found is that while you have to be quicker, more nimble, more lean, consumer expectations haven't changed. If they book a 3-star bed and breakfast, say, they still want that experience. And while they may appreciate that some elements of the experience have to be adapted, they don't want it to be lessened. So we're confident that accommodation and with certification and quality assurance that you're already providing a safe and high quality visitor experience. So our role is very much to support you in continuing to do that. So I mentioned that we have continued with some visits throughout 2020, not including the periods of the tightest restrictions. And overall, it was a very positive experience. Our role is to give you an extra pair of eyes on your business. And most of the time, it was giving you the reassurance that the processes, the new processes you've put in place are working well. And also sharing other ways of working and best practice. So today, I wanted to take a little bit of time to share with you what we have seen and learned over the past year, and to share that with you as we get ready to reopen once again in 2021. So my tips for reopening. First up, no surprises, cleanliness and health measures. So This cleanliness has always been of the utmost importance to guests, and there's very little room for error, as you'll all know, and it's more true now. I put a stat in here from the World Travel and Tourism Council that 69% of travellers cite cleanliness and health measures as a critical component of travel brands' crisis response. So guests are going to expect to see that high level of attention to detail, and they almost want to feel as if they're the first person ever to stay in your room or your property. Most businesses already did have well-established processes in place and have taken steps to enhance those. So it might be extra levels of cleaning and disinfection, particularly in high touch or shared areas, changing cleaning schedules, hand sanitization stations. It's all so important. And then sitting alongside that is the need to showcase your standards. And we've heard a bit about that today. So according to booking.com, 70% of people will book accommodation only if they know what health and hygiene policies are in place. So while good housekeeping was something that was always done quietly behind the scenes, it's no longer the case. People want to see evidence of what you're doing. So it might be upfront on your homepage, on your booking.com listing if you have a listing, and it should be backed up on arrival or through pre-arrival, so your booking confirmation emails on arrival at the property, maybe some notices at the property, so visible evidence of what you have done and really shouting about that. And tied into that then, so you'll have seen on Sharon's slide, she mentioned both We're Good to Go and Safe Travels. So We're Good to Go is the official UK mark to signal that a tourism hospitality business is following government and industry guidelines related to COVID-19. So when restrictions ease, 2/3 of Northern Ireland consumers would be more inclined to visit a property that displayed the We're Good to Go mark. Uptake has been fantastic to date. I think we're sitting on 1,440 businesses in Northern Ireland signing up, and we do expect that to grow further. We had a couple of questions in the chat about how to apply. So the link, I've just put it under the heading there. It's www.goodtogoni.com, or you can simply put that into Google. It's free, it's easy to apply as long as you have already taken the steps in the background. So there are about 15 questions or so. We will ask you, do you have a COVID-19 risk assessment in place? Do you have a nominated health and safety person in post? And in the vast majority of cases with self-catering bed and breakfast guest house, that will be yourself. That you've reviewed social distancing measures and similar questions. So very quick and easy. Again, feel free to give us a shout with any questions on that. Spot checks are carried out as part of that, and the feedback from the team who are doing that has been overwhelmingly positive. So businesses have been really proud to show us what measures they've been put in place. There's another graphic here on the right, which Sharon also mentioned earlier. Some of you may or may not recognise that. So the team's been working with the World Travel and Tourism Council and confirmed that members of We're Good to Go now qualify for the Safe Travel stamp. So this is essentially the international equivalent. So that can be used in your international marketing efforts if you are advertising to visitors overseas. All members will have already received an email about it, but you just need to log back into that same website, Good to Go NI, log in and follow the steps. So I've called this slide Awareness and Education. So businesses have learned a lot about how to operate within restrictions over the past year. We have put together with the Department for the Economy a guide called Working Safely During COVID-19 in Tourism and Hospitality Businesses. It's a very comprehensive reference guide. It's about 45 or 50 pages. It's hosted on our website, covid19.tourismni.com. It's good to be able to refer back to that if you have a specific question. So we'll have a section on cleanliness, on risk assessments. What we're also going to do, so that's your key reference guide, but as restrictions change for tourism and hospitality businesses, we're going to produce a summary of the restrictions and what they mean for you. So we've had some questions in the chat already about what reopening is going to look like. We don't know the exact answers yet, but we will be publishing that, as will Janice and her team. There's also a fantastic guide here that I've put up, and it's one that I refer back to quite often. So some of us on the call, we know what the regulations are and all the detail behind it, but this site on NI Direct, it tells you what the latest restrictions are in layman's terms. So if you just need a quick guide on what you can and can't do as a whole and across the visitor economy, I recommend looking at this. So either use that link that I've put there or type into Google NI Direct what the restrictions mean for you. It's a great tool for keeping up to date. And I find if you do have staff, it's a very useful one for sharing with them as well. Next step tied into that again is helping your guests and making it very, very easy for them to follow the new protocols that you have put in place. So as quality advisors or certification officers, our team walks the visitor journey every day, and it's the best way to recognise what's working well and where the gaps are. So with regards to COVID-19, you want to make it really, really easy to follow the guidance and keep each other safe. So for example, with hand sanitisation, you should have hand sanitisation at the front of your property. And if it's a self-catering in any maybe shared play areas or bed and breakfast, you want to have it at key points throughout the visitor's journey. So entrance to the breakfast room, maybe at stairs. And what you want to do is make sure that it's right in front of them or in their sight line so that they don't even have to think about it. Or if you're a larger premises and you have one-way systems in place, walk them through, look for bottlenecks, or if there's ever any areas where queues are likely to form, or if you do have shared areas and people are likely to congregate, let visitors know what to do in that case. Where do they stand? What does 1 or 2 meters apart look like? This can be done with visual cues. I've seen it done with stickers, buttons on the floor, or other physical indicators. So key here is just to make it very, very easy and obvious what they need to do. So next up, we've had a few questions about what to do with hospitality trays, welcome packs, soft furnishings. In some instances, these have been removed entirely. People have found it difficult to understand how to do it safely and how to do it to the same high standard as they always did. There's a nice luxury about these things though. I know it's one of my favourite things to do when I arrive somewhere is to sit down, have a cup of tea, have a biscuit and take it all in. So if you do have a hospitality tray, for example, it can stay, you just have to do it slightly differently. So you'll need to make sure that the kettle and tray are thoroughly disinfected and that you have some communication so that the guest knows that this has been done after the last guest has vacated. So loose products, for example, sachets of coffee or tea or biscuits, they can be individually proportioned. So a couple of them made available for each guest. So they can be used for that guest or disposed of after a guest's stay. Ideally, we'd like to minimize how much we dispose of. So perhaps there's different ways of working around that. Maybe the whole hospitality tray can be wrapped. Maybe things can be taken to order. And likewise, we get queries about cushions, bed throws, books, personal effects. Unnecessary items can be removed, but think about what you do instead so as not to strip back the experience. We've seen people maybe taking cushion covers out and laundering them and swapping in another set, so essentially having 2 sets of items. You could consider resting items for a couple of days between lets. And then the final slide, now we've, Janice and Sharon have both touched on these, but adapting for the future. So early on in the first lockdown, I remember our Chief Digital Officer saying to us something he had read, that we've had 3 years worth of digital innovation in 3 months. We've all become a little bit more tech savvy in our personal lives and readily adapt to new technology. Some businesses were always quite advanced in their use of technology or new processes. So what we've seen in this sector, and Janice says it doesn't have to be complicated. So we've seen some self-catering operators move to contactless entry and key boxes with really good instructions in place. So Janice mentioned emailing something to the guests and letting them view that on their own phone or iPad, or maybe have something available at the property. If you have a property management system, your booking confirmation emails can be reviewed so that guests know exactly what they have to do when they arrive. We've seen this sector as well has been really great with a camera, and during the initial lockdowns had sent us great videos about what they were doing to keep guests safe, and they were really really highly rated on social media. People liked to see how that was going to look. Final 2 points are around adaptability and flexibility. So many of you will have already opened, and you'll know what guest expectations are and how flexible they expect you to be, and how challenging can that be. But the flexibility is going to remain very important. So in recent research, 74% of travellers said they wanted travel booking platforms to increase transparency around cancellation policies. It is going to be extremely important, and I'm sure a lot of us here, I know I personally have had challenges with changing or cancelling a holiday. So people do expect to see that, to give them the confidence to book. And then adaptability. So Sharon has told us a bit about our new markets, and Janice has talked about this as well. So we know that the Northern Ireland consumer is most likely to be the first one to start travelling, followed by Republic of Ireland and Great Britain. So there's a lot of great research. Sharon talked about some of it. There's more comprehensive information on our website. So take a little bit of time, if you can, get to know what the Northern Ireland consumer likes to do. And actually, you probably know this already from your own bookings, but what do they like to do? What packages appeal to them? Where do they go? And think about how your property is the perfect place for that, and communicate that really well, either through your website, through talking to past guests. And with tip number 10, I think I've talked myself out. Look, thanks everyone so much for joining, and I will leave my contact details up on the next slide here. And thank you very much, and we'll go to questions now.
Thank you so much, Sam, and some really, really useful information and advice there. And thanks so much to all of our speakers this morning. Just a reminder to everyone who's joining us today, as always, we'll be sharing a recording of today's session with you all, so you can review this again at your leisure, or pass on to maybe someone else within your team who you think this would really be worthwhile to view. So we'll shortly be inviting all of our speakers back for our Q&A session. So any questions that you haven't yet shared in the chat, please go ahead and pop those into the question section in the webinar control panel now. We'll get through as many as we can today. Just before we get stuck in, I'm going to do a couple of very quick polls just so we can get a feel for how you found today's session so far. The first one should pop up on the screen now shortly. It's simply, how would you rate today's session in terms of content and relevance to your business? So that's on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being not relevant at all and 5 being extremely relevant. I'll just give you guys a second to fill that in. And our second question is just a very easy yes or no question. Do you plan to take any action within your business as a direct result of what you've heard from all of our speakers today? So that's just a simple yes or no. I'll take this opportunity also to remind you that we, as usual, will be issuing a short survey via email after this session. So that'll be your opportunity to let us know what else you'd like to see in the TED programme. So we really appreciate if you can take the opportunity to complete that when you have a moment. We're just continuously developing and evolving the programme, and your feedback really is just such a vital part of that process. So now it's my great pleasure to welcome back our experts today. That's Sharon Scott, Janice Gault and Samantha Corr for our Q&A session. Welcome back everyone, and thanks again for your presentations today, and let's get stuck into some questions. I'm going to kick off with you first, Sharon, if you don't mind. I wonder if you could maybe give us just some more insights into the domestic market, just in the context very specifically of today's audience of the non-hotel accommodation sector.
Yes, Patricia, I think we've heard from Sam and the issue around safety and cleanliness and those important elements. And from a marketing point of view, it's really bringing those forward. And Sam did mention that we take that a lot for granted in marketing in years gone by. It was something that we actually did, but we've really got to push that forward. And we've talked about the need for accreditation and making your procedures and your new policies very, very aware to the visitor. Some of the guys that I worked with last year in the trade did some lovely little videos. Sam talked about the need to walk the visitor through little videos, just little snapshots that can go on your website to show the visitor what to expect. You know, whether that's going as you check in, go through the procedures, that can help create that consumer confidence that is key. And I think the consumer sentiment surveys are really showing us a lot of how people are thinking, and we can kind of relate that to our own lives and thoughts at the minute. 47% are showing that they're open to ideas, they're planning and they're looking. And from a marketing point of view, it's really, really important that we start to plan now and think about the targeting that I mentioned. 51% are really, really looking for exclusive packages. That's around the need to really spoil ourselves a bit this year, to escape and get away from it all. But you can sense there from the consumer sentiment survey, there's really an element of confidence building again. The visitors will want to see that where they go, and this is where working together, working collaborative really comes into its own to attract people to a particular area. We've worked this week and talked to tour guides. We're talking to the restaurants and pubs later on this afternoon. So everybody looking at that exclusive package element to give that confidence that visitor will know that this is something that I can stand over. It gives me the credibility that I can go and do something that's organized, particularly if you're all on the we're good to go accreditation. So working together will be very, very important. So I think the key message from a marketing point of view and really attracting that domestic market is planning now, be really creative in your building of your offer and work collaboratively.
Absolutely, no, that's great. Sharon, I know that both yourself and Sam, you mentioned the Good to Go scheme and how to get involved in that. We have had a couple of questions through about how do we sign up for Good to Go and how are we able to show the logo. Sam, would you maybe just do a quick refresher on that and what's involved in that?
I will do. So the web address, I included it in the presentation there. It's Good to Go NI, or if you just pop We're Good to Go into Google. So you'll be asked to register, and then you'll be asked a series of about 15 questions on the measures that you've put into place. You'll be asked if you've done your COVID-19 risk assessment, if you have put social distancing measures in place. So once that's through, it's processed. There may be additional spot checks from our end, but you'll have access to the logo and you'll also have access to the Safe Travels website. So you can use that on your own listings on your own website.
Yeah, and I think it's correct to say that if you have a Discover Northern Ireland listing, then that logo will automatically, once you register for the Good to Go and that's approved, that will automatically be added to your Discover Northern Ireland listing as well. Isn't that right? Yeah.
It will.
So yeah, great. Fab. Hopefully that's clarified that for anybody there today. Janice, I'm going to come to you now, if you don't mind. We have a question through about how can we convince past customers and future potential customers that communal spaces or bedrooms will be safe to stay in? What are your thoughts on that, Janice?
I think communal spaces are probably slightly more challenging than bedrooms. I think people do think that the space within bedrooms is relatively easy to do. Certainly, I think if you have up signage, very simple signage, maybe spacing out things slightly more, reducing the number of tables is one side of doing it, but also controlling the amount of people that are in there, whether that be a sitting space like it's a lounge or a sort of a communal area. Basically control it and say that social distancing measures are there. Maybe take a couple of photographs of it, put that on your website, say, this site now, the maximum amount of people, you do legally have to say the maximum amount of people that are allowed in a particular area anyway. Say that remove the touch points. we've mentioned, you know, everybody has a mobile phone these days, unfortunately. I think everybody from the age of 2 upwards. In fact, I suspect 2-year-olds are better at using than most of us. You know, do a short video that, you know, you've removed things that maybe are normally on the tables, you've taken them away, that the area is sanitized. Show that you actually have a presence in that area if it is a communal space. That somebody comes in, that they clean it, that they tidy down the area, and that that person is visible. For many years, certainly in the hotel sector, we've spent a lot of time hiding housekeeping and keeping them out of the way. We're now at the stage where they're walking around, you know, with blue flashing lights on their heads. People know that they're there, which is great. I mean, for many years, I've always said, having worked as a housekeeper for, I think, about 2 days in my student life, I decided it was one of the world's most challenging jobs. But I think if you can actually do that and show your customers and say, you know, having those accreditations is important, but actually showing it in your premise, there's nothing like a short, you know, 20 minutes, you know, take, you know, if it's a lounge, or maybe, you know, some of the self-catering areas have a common area that they use that's indoors. Outline what that is, say what it is, go down through it and show the changes that you've made. And I think it's a big communication piece. And I think you've got to be confident with what you have as of your staff. And if your staff are confident and able to answer those questions well, then you shouldn't have a chat. It will be a short-term issue, but I think if you communicate it well, you'll get over it.
Yeah, I think like all these things, communication is just so vital. Thanks so much, Janice. Sam, we've had a question through here about someone whose bookings are all made through TripAdvisor and they don't collect the home address of the guests. So is that something they have to collect, certainly from sort of a track and trace point of view?
It's something actually all accommodation providers would have to do with their tourism certificate. You do have to have a record of everyone who stayed, including their home address. With test and trace, once businesses reopen, it's very highly likely that there will be some form of test and trace in place. So we'll keep you posted that. But yes, it's something you should be doing anyway.
Okay, so essentially, even not in COVID time, that is something that you ought to collect and keep a record of. That's great to know. Janice, I'll come back to you if you don't mind. Well, we've had a specific question in relation to self-catering accommodation and what are the plans to reopen this. I know obviously we don't have set dates yet, but in terms of any kind of non-hotel accommodation, have you any thoughts on what the plans are likely to be or what that could look like?
Self-catering sits in the pathway under travel and under tourism and travel, and the next review of that will be the 15th of April. There will be engagement around what it looks like and what reopening looks like over the sort of the coming weeks. It will be after the 15th of April at this moment in time. How soon after that? I mean, in previous occasions, self-catering has opened before other types of accommodation. So there may be an opportunity to do that. I will say, and I think this came up from somebody else, and I'll just cover it off now. Self-catering, like all accommodation at this moment in time, can provide accommodation for essential travel, be that moving house, self-isolation, or essential work travel. But I would say you're probably at this stage talking around the May period. But again, that's based on a very large number of moving parts, and it would be very difficult to give a definitive answer at this moment in time.
Yeah, we do have someone here who has some bookings for April and they're wondering, can they go ahead with them? I suppose the tricky thing is unless there was an announcement at the very start of April, which is not very likely. I don't know if there's an official line on that, or
they are currently mandated to close. So I would say that the recent methodology that has been deployed is that between the review dates there have been no easements. There have been a couple of changes around education, but there certainly have been no major easements. I would feel that it's unlikely that there will be any significant announcements before the 15th of April. However, you know, if we did reach a situation where we had zero amount of infection, that could maybe move very quickly. But certainly there is a diagram that the department or the executive office have produced, and we have sent that on to hotels to send out to their customers to say, at this moment in time, until after the 12th of April, which is the current date that's in there, we are unable to honour leisure bookings. If a person is a leisure guest, you are not supposed to have them on your premises, and that's unfortunately the rules at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Sam, I'll come to you now if you don't mind. We've had a couple of questions on the same vein, just about the kind of recommended downtime between guest parties, and in terms of safety and potential for, you know, the cleanliness, or do you need to have that fallow time? Are you able to give any advice on that, or what the most up-to-date advice is on that?
Yeah, so this is something that was talked about quite a lot last year, and as businesses got ready to reopen, there was the question, do we have to leave our rooms vacant for 72 hours? That's not necessarily the case. It's going to be, I'm actually going to pop in the chat if I can. There is a great template provided by the Health and Safety Executive for Northern Ireland. It's a COVID-19 risk assessment template. It gives you all the points that you have to think about for your business and makes it really easy to answer. So it'll ask you questions that will help inform how you reopen. I'll also put in a link to the Working Safely guide that I talked about from Tourism NI. That talks broadly about cleanliness, the types of cleaning products you might be looking at, what to do, how to clean after a suspected case of COVID-19. So, no, Patricia, there's no fixed rule. You don't have to close off your rooms for a certain period. You just have to make sure that they have been thoroughly cleaned and disinfected. Some people will choose to close rooms for a couple of days for that extra layer of safety, but it's something that every business should take a little bit of time, work through that great risk assessment template and see how it works for their business.
That's super. Thank you so much, Sam, and hopefully that's clarified that. So, no, we've had a couple of questions in on that, so that's great. We've also had a question through about promotion, that Tourism NI might be planning any reopening marketing, whether that's for self-catering accommodation or beyond. I actually checked in with our marketing team this morning just to get the latest on that. So just to update on that side of things, at the minute we're planning a number of campaign scenarios that are going to be ready to go to then go out into market when the time is right. So it'll be a recovery campaign, so about supporting and revitalising the local industry, promoting staycations in both NI and Republic of Ireland markets, and hopefully then there should be the option then for industry such as accommodation providers, and also visitor attractions, etc., and the wider hospitality sector to work collaboratively with us at Tourism NI to help amplify the campaign, so throughout their own activity with the kind of embrace a giant spirit messaging. So basically, I suppose the short answer is that the team are working away in the background to have something that will be ready to go when we know some dates, and when we know what the reopening plan is going to be, and certainly we'll be trying our best to make sure the message is out there to get as much bookings in through for all of yourselves as we possibly can. Sam, I'm going to come back to you if you don't mind. When we had a question through to say when we reopen, what are the COVID regulations going to be in terms of social distancing, mixing guests from different households, etc. I know we don't know obviously the definitive guidelines, but would you maybe have some idea on that?
Like you say, Patricia, we don't have the definitive guideline. We can look at what happened before. So in shared spaces, there would be social distancing of usually 2 meters or 1 meter with some form of mitigation, possibly a screen. We did see for self-catering, we saw a couple of different variations where you could have guests from 2 households. This was then reduced to 1. I think it's quite safe to assume that, given the precautions we've seen so far with mixing outside at the minute, we're likely to see some of that coming back, but we will be publishing a summary of what the restrictions are as they apply to tourism and hospitality businesses when they change. So as Janice said, the next review date is 15th of April. So keep an eye on our website on that, or our Tourism Spotlight email newsletter, or social media as well, and we'll do our best to keep you posted on what these restrictions actually mean for you.
That's great, Sam. I'm going to stick with you if you don't mind. The questions are thick and fast today, but we have someone from a self-catering accommodation who I think Janice had suggested about, potentially adding bed spaces by putting a sofa bed in the living room, for example, and they were just wondering, is that something from the Tourism NI kind of certification point of view, if they're certified as, say, having more bed spaces, and what would be the guidelines on that? Sorry, Sam.
So we will certify you for a certain number of bed spaces. So if you're certified to sleep 4 people, that's what we'll publish on our website. That's what you should be advertising. But what you can do, you can provide extra bed spaces on sofa beds. They just have to be clearly advertised as such. And I think, Patricia, did you mention about insurance, or did somebody say it in the chat?
That was in the chat, yeah.
So you'll need to check what that means for your individual insurance policy as well. So in short, it can be done, but just make sure you're very, very clear in your advertising that somebody will be getting a sofa bed rather than the full-size bed.
Absolutely. So we've managed expectations, and no one arrives and is disappointed then. We had another question through there just about the good to go. They were asking if there was a good to go emoji for the likes of social media, Instagram. I know there's obviously the good to go logo, so there'd be no issue if you have that accreditation to share that on your social media. I'm not sure, I haven't seen or not aware of an emoji as such, but
no,
are you aware of, Sharon? Sorry, go ahead.
Patricia,
you might
there
know.
is. I just did a check there. There is actually the hashtag. We are good to go, which is over it's 1,000 posts. So if you actually use the hashtag in your posts, it's been picked up. So that not emoji and stuff, but use the hashtag. We're good to go. And I have seen sort of creeping in, and that will build over time. We are good. We're good to go as just to abbreviate it as well. So it's something actually to keep an eye on as it develops. So just use the hashtag in a minute.
Absolutely, that's absolutely super. Thank you so much, and thanks to everyone. We've been absolutely inundated with questions there this morning, so thank you for all your questions today, and I hope you find this session useful. Just a reminder, if there's a particular area that you're struggling with or you're looking for some bespoke advice on, we have a dedicated phone line service that's been open since last March to help businesses during this time. The number's just popped up on your screen there. It's the COVID support helpline. It's open from Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, but there's also an online inquiry form. If you head to covid19.tourismni.com and go to contact us, you can also complete the online form. So whether it's outside of those hours or it's easier to just put it in writing as well. Also, if you want to get in touch with me to ask any questions following from today, and I can even pass this on to any members of the team, it's industry.development@tourismni.com. Just drop us an email and I'll do my best to come back with whatever your query may be. I suppose I'll just take this opportunity as well to remind you that if you head to covid19.tourismni.com and click on the support centre, you can also find recordings and support materials from all of our previous TED webinars to date, alongside, of course, guidelines and links to your local councils and lots of really useful documents and links on there. So if you haven't gone on there and had a bit of a trawl around, it really is worth your while, and it's being updated all the time. So I know, as we've said today, that we don't know yet exactly what the guidelines for reopening will be, but obviously we'll update that as soon as we have those. So the most up-to-date links are what you'll find on there, and it's updated and checked by our team really, really regularly. That's where we'll also aim to get a recording up from today as soon as we possibly can. So we'll share a link with you all to that once it's ready to go. As always, be sure to check out regularly the upcoming webinars section while you're there. That's where we include not only the TED programme webinars, but also relevant sessions delivered by our partners. So for example, perhaps if Janice is running something, then we can share links to those as well. So thank you so much, everybody. All that remains for today is for me to thank Sam, Sharon and Janice for some really valuable insights this morning, and I look forward to welcoming you back soon. Hopefully see you all in real life sometime soon, and thanks and all the very best. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. Thanks.
Thanks everyone.
Bye.